Ryder Lyons to Ole Miss seems like it's a lot more likely now that USC and Oregon might be looking elsewhere.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Locked On Ole Miss podcast is the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there, and we bring you daily coverage on the Ole Miss Rebels. I'm Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. Today, we're talking about the recruitment of five-star quarterback Ryder Lyons from Folsom High School in California. His recruitment has been a little bit unusual for the five-star prospect. Long assumed to be headed to USC or Oregon, Lyons revealed that he is going to be taking an LDS mission after the season, essentially making him a 2027 quarterback. That changes everything, and there's no quarterback in the country that thrives more on off-platform recruiting than Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss has a real shot here. We'll talk all about that stuff as well. Plus, we'll preview tomorrow's game against the Florida Gators after Ole Miss's huge win over the Tennessee Vols on Wednesday. Spoiler alert, it's not a first weekend number one seed in their future anymore. I think Ole Miss has gotten out of that 8-9 line pretty good going into March Madness. So we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And a special shout out to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. For your second listen, check out Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy for more SEC insights. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers for FanDuel can get $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. So this is an interesting year, and I talk a lot with the Florida football scout, and he's talking about how and what Ole Miss is doing in recruiting. And we talked about Jameson Powell, the wide receiver out of Folsom High School in California, where Ryder Lyons attends school. And everybody wants Ryder Lyons. Everybody in the country wants Ryder Lyons. And a couple of weeks ago, Steve Wiltfong put out a story that listed Ole Miss as a dark horse for Ryder Lyons, and that USC and Oregon would be the two main actors in his recruitment. That's what they put out. And I'm like, okay, dark horse, I'll take it. Ryder Lyons is a top 100 player. Some people have him in the top 5, honestly. But if you look at his statistics, on three, they have him as the number 50 nationally player. 24/7 has them as the number 6 national player. ESPN has him as the number 48. Rivals has him at the number 3. And the composite has him as the 10th overall player in the entire country and the 4th quarterback and the number 1 player in California. Ryder Lyons is an elite prospect. So if you are just in the recruitment for Ryder Lyons, that's a pretty big deal for whoever you're in. Ole Miss just got a commitment a couple weeks back from Jameson Powell. That's Ryder Lyons, wide receiver at Folsom High School. And that helps. You're going to have somebody in Ryder Lyons' ear pretty much constantly over the next few weeks. But that still doesn't eliminate the problem that Ole Miss has in their recruitment of USC and Oregon. You need to get those two schools kind of out of the way if you want to go from dark horse to favorite or somebody that can legitimately land. And it looks like Ole Miss is kind of trending in that direction. It seems like Ole Miss is really moving up in the recruitment of Ryder Lyons because USC took a commitment on a player that was committed to Oregon from Illinois. I think his name's Jonas Williams, a quarterback. That kind of eliminated USC. And if you talked about that as Ryder Lyons is going through the camp circuit right now in football, he was asked about USC and he was like, yeah, I'm kind of more wide open than I was. And that tells you that he was thinking really hard about SC. Now he's not. So that leaves Oregon on the table that Ole Miss and everybody else has to worry about. And everybody assumes that Oregon's going to turn the full press on Ryder Lyons. But the rumor is right now, and I stress this is a rumor, but I believe the person that told me this, Jared Curtis, is seriously considering Oregon for his next home. the quarterback out of Nashville, Tennessee, which means if that happens, you have just taken USC and Oregon off the table for Ryder Lyons, and it gets interesting. What happens then? Then the dark horse becomes more of a favorite, and Ole Miss is in a position to where they can land a quarterback of that level. So where would you go? How would that look? What is going to go on? Of course, he's from Northern California, so I guess Stanford and Cal would always be on the list of places that he would look at. I guess UCLA would be there as well. But the favorites after SC and Oregon, if those chess pieces have fallen off of the board, which they probably have, and it's still early in recruiting, but let's just say if he's not going to go to USC and he's not going to go to Oregon, who are the next 3 teams that people should watch out for? I think Alabama is always going to be a threat with Kalen DeBoer and the West Coast recruiting roots. People need to remember that Kalen DeBoer, actually, before he went to Washington, was at Fresno State. He has some Northern California ties of what's going on. Alabama, if he gets a visit there, that's obviously going to be a real deal. You've got BYU. I mentioned earlier about him taking an LDS mission after this high school year for a year. That lets you know that he's serious about that, and LDS and BYU would obviously be an option for this quarterback. And then Ole Miss. Those would be the next tier, the 3 tier that people need to watch for after SC and Oregon. And if Ole Miss needs to win a recruiting battle over BYU, over Alabama, Ole Miss can do that, especially with Lane Kiffin as a play caller, especially with the reputation that Ole Miss has developed, especially considering Jackson Dart is likely going to go in the middle of the first round. The kid from Utah going into the middle of the first round in the upcoming NFL draft. There's a lot of things working in Ole Miss's favor right now for Ryder Lyons, and I'm curious to see where it goes because we are getting into top-level quarterback commit territory. We are now in the quiet period. The dead period's over. Now's the quiet period, which means contact is only permissible with a recruit, I think, if they're on campus. So that means visits for spring practice can happen. That means all of the players that you're coming in, you need to pay attention to who's going to be on your campus for what's going to go on. Official visit season starts pretty much in May, and that goes May and June. See who goes to a practice, see who takes an official visit, and that gives you an idea who you need to pay attention to in the fall. As Brian Smith and every other football expert says, follow the visits. If Ryder Lyons makes a trip to Mississippi, he's already been once, and he has an excuse to go to another game again this season. And if he takes an official visit in the summer, it's going to be a situation that you have to pay attention to. And the weird thing about that is, I don't think that changes necessarily what Ole Miss was planning on doing. This Ole Miss signing class is rewriting the playbook. Imagine landing 3 high school quarterbacks this fall. Could this be the ultimate recruiting coup? We break down this wild scenario and what a perfect world could mean for the Ole Miss Rebels. So stick around. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel. That's America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off, or if you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, by the way, you can combine those live bets into a same game parlay. Listen, Ole Miss is probably going to be a fairly considerable underdog at the Florida Gators, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 7.5 to 11.5 points, something like that. FanDuel makes it to where you can take that line, put it into a same game parlay, and make yourself a little bit of coin if you like Ole Miss, if you like Florida, or if you think a comeback is coming. The app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If that first $5 bet wins, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So we talked in the first segment about Ryder Lyons, and Ryder Lyons he's a big-time recruit, and Ole Miss is going to recruit him no matter what. And the reason I say that is because Ole Miss is also in good shape with Landon Duckworth, the quarterback out of Jackson High School in Alabama. He's another guy that litters inside the top 100. He is number 122 on 3. He's number 119 ESPN. He's number 47 247. He's number 29 Rivals for a composite of the number 53 player in the entire country. He's a 4-star quarterback, and he has all the tools you could ever want of somebody to play in the position. How will the first segment affect Landon Duckworth? And I don't think it would. I genuinely do not think it would, because Duckworth, should he choose to commit, and he's already, I think, got a visit set up for practice and an official visit already on the books. Landon Duckworth is probably the quarterback that I think Ole Miss is going to end up getting. If Ole Miss only gets one quarterback, it is likely going to be Landon Duckworth, and that is a good thing. He is an excellent player. He is somebody that has RG3 level athletic ability and the ability to throw the football and spin it out there. He is a guy that makes you better. But Ryder Lyons and Landon Duckworth, they're not an mutually exclusive thing like a normal 5-star and a 4-star would be in this class, and that is because of the mission. And Ryder Lyons essentially being a 2027 quarterback. If you sign Ryder Lyons, if you sign Landon Duckworth, you basically signed one quarterback in both classes. That's my point there. But there's a chance that if everything goes well and you land a Ryder Lyons and you land a Landon Duckworth, your quarterback room and your quarterback position is just kind of set. Now, Ole Miss would probably like one more quarterback, maybe a lottery ticket of somebody that is looking for a place to perform and a place to show out, a place to be developed. I think Reese Wise meets that threshold. So I could see a perfect storm to where Landon Duckworth and Reese Wise are the quarterbacks that are assigned this season for the 2026 class. And then this season, after the mission, you sign a Ryder Lyons. So you end up signing 3 quarterbacks in the class. I know that's weird. I know that's going to blow people's mind when I say that. And I know that it's one of the most perfect storm Pollyanna views of recruiting there can possibly be. But if you look at it, the quarterback that I think is most likely to end up at Ole Miss right now, save Reese Wise, because Reese Wise, I think, commits as soon as he has a committable offer at Ole Miss. But Landon Duckworth is that guy. If you can parlay what's going on there into a Ryder Lyons for the 2027 class, you're kind of cooking with gas. And it'll be really interesting to see exactly what they can do. The recruiting is going to be nuts. We talked with the Florida football scout on a show that we're going to put on Sunday, I think. We talked a little bit about Ryder in that. We talked about Jamison Powell a little bit in there. We talked about Xavier McDonald like really deeply on that podcast. And with the wide receivers that Ole Miss has in the state of Mississippi right now and the quarterbacks they're trying to bring in, the snowball effect for what could happen to Ole Miss high school recruiting is pretty pronounced. Like there is a path for a 2013, 2016 style recruiting close in this recruiting cycle. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the state of Mississippi is so good. So if you just handle business and do what you've been doing in the state of Mississippi, you're obviously going to up your 4 stars. State of Mississippi has gotten consistently better over the last 10 or so years. And I think that's as much a part of the rise of Ole Miss football as anything else, is the local players, the root, the backbone, the core of all of your teams is just a little bit better than it was. And that's interesting to me of what it can be. But I kind of went off on a little bit of a rant right there. If you're looking at a perfect storm, and it would take a perfect storm, okay? Nobody say that, hey, Steve said this is going to happen. No, it's a perfect storm. We're just all projecting at this point. We're the weathermen. We can be wrong. Landon, Duckworth, Reese, and Ryder Lyons. In a perfect storm, I think you would like to have a signing class with those three players at quarterback. And it would, man, that would be something else. It'd be something to see. And because you have three completely different quarterbacks that you're signing. You've got, let's go back to Reese Wise. We put video of Reese Wise up on the account, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. Wise plays the position really similarly to Jackson Dart, the way he played it. So you're basically bringing in another person that stylistically plays the same way. You have a much more athletic quarterback, an RG3 looking quarterback in Landon Duckworth, and the athleticism that he can do. He has a 99-yard scramble. Essentially, Jackson High School passed the ball out of their own end zone. He had to scramble, ended up taking it 99 yards to the house. He has elite running ability, and he can really spin it as well. And then you got Ryder Lyons, who's just the prototypical NFL-style quarterback, somebody that is going to make a ton of money really quickly. And if Ole Miss handles business and does what they're supposed to do, they could be sitting really pretty this time next year. Really, like, I have no idea exactly how it got here, but really pretty. Ole Miss football recruiting, and especially high school recruiting, is at another level right now than what it was even 2-3 years ago. You have an excellent recruiting staff. You've got more talent in the state, and you've got Ole Miss willing to put more resources into said talent. We're going to talk to Walker Jones on Monday from the Grove Collective. It was right before the NCAA tournament. It was time to have him on the show again. We can find out what's going on there. We can find out an update on the House ruling. We can find out an update on all of that stuff and how it fits into high school recruiting. And I might ask him, is there a difference right now between high school and transfer portal recruiting for the Grove Collective or something like that? I might ask one of those questions. But the way it sits right now in high school football recruiting, and especially quarterback recruiting, there's a chance that Ole Miss has a chance to make a little bit of hay in this recruiting cycle. And we'll see exactly what that looks like. Up next, Ole Miss travels down to Gainesville tomorrow for their final regular season showdown with the Gators. If you're nursing a slight injury, maybe you should sit that game out. I don't know, but with a tournament-ready team, maybe keeping the chemistry intact is the key. We have this conversation aloud in the third segment as we preview this game, so stay tuned. Listen, the Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to unexpected upsets, these guys are showcased and showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada clear-cut Team of the Week is the Houston Cougars. Since joining the Big 12 last season, the Cougars have gone a combined 33-4 in the conference, and they've won the regular season title by multiple games both years. Normally, that was Kansas's job. There's currently no team in college basketball that more capably embodies the rugged Armada than Kelvin Sampson's squad. Houston's tenacious defense leads the nation in the fewest points allowed per game for the second straight season. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Houston Cougars have done here. It is clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of the new Nissan outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. So Ole Miss got a really fun weekend, or fun upset over the Tennessee Vols on Wednesday. It was a game that Ole Miss won 78-76. They shot the ball pretty well from two. They did not have a good game from three-point range, but 45% from two-point range is pretty good, and a lot of that had to do with just Jamin Brakefield taking over. Ole Miss was able to take care of the basketball against one of the better defensive teams in the entire country. Ole Miss won the rebounding battle, which once again, this score proved, and this game proved, that if you lose the rebounding battle to Ole Miss, you're going to lose the game. Fouls were about even. Tennessee ended up shooting 31 three-point shots, and they kind of got cold in the second half, and that allowed Ole Miss to kind of take over, come back, and win the basketball game. Ole Miss heads down to Gainesville, Florida over the weekend for a game with the Florida Gators. This is a bad matchup for Ole Miss. I'm just going to be honest about it. The big men for Florida, I think his name Condon, the big guy, the 7-footer, that there had 27 points, 15 rebounds or something like that against Alabama. Some absurd amount of points on the outside. There's two sharp shooters, and with Ole Miss's pinching and their no middle defense to leave open corner threes, you can see Walter Clayton, and they're probably going to line up to do that. And Florida is a team that has the ability to really jump on you. They're another team like Alabama, to where you can play for 12 minutes, play really well, and you're down 32-31, or you're up 34-31. And then you look up, and all of a sudden at halftime, you're down by 12 points. This is a very, very, very good Florida basketball team, and this is likely a number one seeded Florida basketball team. You're going to have Auburn and likely Florida as number one seeds in the NCAA tournament. Tennessee and maybe A&M, but Tennessee is going to be on the 2 line, A&M probably on the 3, 4 line Kentucky. I think Ole Miss probably belongs somewhere around 6, 5 in that area. So we'll see exactly how that goes. If you want to look at the keys to victory for Ole Miss in this game, make the game into a slow fight that Florida doesn't want. Make it ugly. Make it herky-jerky. Do what you have to do. Don't allow Florida runs to end all hope, like we talked about. You could be having an excellent game, and then with 4 minutes left, they go on a run, and next thing you know, you're down by 15 points, and it is over. Be competitive on the boards versus Florida on Saturday. Tennessee's an excellent rebounding team. This wasn't a situation that Tennessee was a bad rebounding team and Ole Miss just was able to beat them. No, they went up against a good rebounding team and held their own and ended up pulling out the victory. Be competitive on the boards against Florida. Do not lose the boards by more than 10 rebounds. That's kind of the rule. And also play another clean game and don't allow Florida to speed you up. Play your game. In team sports, the whole goal of team sports is to play the game faster than your opponent feels comfortable playing it. That's the reason good teams happen, and Alabama is going to make UT Chattanooga struggle because UT Chattanooga can't play at that speed, at that level of execution. Basketball is the same way. Teams try to make you uncomfortable with the pace of play. And in the pace of play in basketball, it's about speeding up the opponent. So Florida's going to try and speed up Ole Miss. Ole Miss doesn't need to fall into the trap. They need to play their game. Now, the players to watch in this game, it's the same 3 guys at this point. Dre Davis, who had a double-double against the Tennessee Volunteers, was absolutely instrumental for their comeback, their rebounding, everything that was important. That was awesome. He did have the one bad foul at the end of the game, but we forgive him because they won the game. Matthew Morrell did not shoot overly well from the outside, but gave Ole Miss a lot of action, steal, run out, layup, a couple of things at the basket. He played pretty well. And then Malik Dia in the first half played a little bit of bully ball. Malik Dia can play bully ball, and Malik Dia doing that was good to see as well. This is an interesting game. Like Matthew Morrell, I don't know that I would play Matthew Morrell in this game. Anybody that has a nick, I would probably give them the day off in this game, because this is a game that's going to be difficult to pull out a W anyway. It's not capitulating, but if everything truly is about March Madness and the NCAA tournament, which honestly it is at this point, Ole Miss is guaranteed to finish at least 10-8 in the SEC. They've locked up a bye in the SEC tournament. They are very unlikely to get a double bye, win or lose. So the way it sets up is, why don't you set yourself up to be in the best position that you can be in March? And the question becomes, is it better to be completely healthy or to keep the chemistry intact? After that Tennessee game, do you want to just kind of go and try and do it again to try and run it through? And that question, I just genuinely don't know about. I know that at this point, I'm a lot more excited about March Madness than I was yesterday at this time. I understand that. I understand that a lot of hope is going into this basketball team as it sits right now. I think that Ole Miss needs to put itself in the best position it can for March Madness. And when it comes to March Madness, it's going to be completely 120% on matchups. If you match up well against your opponent, you're probably going to do pretty well. You need to try and avoid 1 seeds for as long as possible. Unless you are a 1 seed, if you are a 1 seed, the closest you can play a 1 seed is the Final Four. If you're a 2 seed, you can't play them until the Elite 8. And if you're a 3 seed, a 4 seed, it's not until the Sweet 16. That's what I'm talking about. 8 seed, 9 seed, round of 32. Avoid a 1 seed for as long as possible. And if Ole Miss can do that with the right matchups, they can make a run. So we'll see what happens. The game, I have Florida winning this game by 10 points, 88-78. I just think it's senior night in Gainesville Saturday night. Ole Miss coming off a big win. There's going to be a little bit of a letdown potentially. Now, Ole Miss could surprise the heck out of me and come out with a ton of energy, take it right to the Florida Gators and just beat them on their home floor, which if Ole Miss won that game, they're probably a 4 seed in the NCAA basketball tournament, if we're going to be real, because Ole Miss would have the 3 best wins potentially in the Southeastern Conference if you beat Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee in the same year. I mean, the only thing that they didn't have was a win over the Auburn Tigers. So Florida, I think, is going to win the game 88-78. I think they're going to be favored by about that amount as well. So we'll see exactly what that looks like. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the #1 Ole Miss podcast and your Ole Miss morning show of choice. Thank you. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC podcast. Host Chris Gordy holds no punches, covering the best conference in college football. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everyone. Remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.